Hey guys, we are the Evergreen Studio. My name is Micah Horton. I have Sam, Kathleen, and Zion with me. We did a integrated communications plan book on the United Nations of America, specifically focused in the United States. As you'll see here, we have the executive summary. Basically, just a quick breakdown of what we tried to accomplish with our campaign. We realized that the UNA USA has been trying to find a way to connect and feel real and relatable with Gen Z. Young people often care about global issues, but don't always know how to get involved. Um, our campaign's goal was kind of reach them where they're already at, such as places like social media, campaign or campus events, through influencers and digital content. By combining all of these different marketing channels, we hope to basically increase awareness and get our Gen Z audience more involved and increase our attendance and then long term um, growth as far as the campaign and UNA itself. So here's just a quick breakdown of what you'll be seeing over the next few slides of what all we have tried to cover throughout our campaign. Got things like executive summary, objectives, key insights, our strategy, how we decided to execute, our public relations, our risks, how we measured everything, and then what our final conclusion of everything we decided to do with our data. So, first off, obviously, with any kind of campaign, there's always going to be challenges. We had several challenges. What I did here, though, was list some of the ones I felt were the most impactful and could make the biggest difference, not only in the long term, but also just immediate things that we could measure and see um, as soon as they were implemented. So the biggest one we noticed off the rip was how low the awareness was in our target audience, which is typically Gen Z. That's anywhere from 18 to 24-year-old Americans, male and female. Um, the other one was they felt that the global issues that they cared about were just too out of reach for anybody in their age group to do anything about. Um, so then we also, as I mentioned previously, was we want to build a long-term involvement rather than just they show up and leave after they realize what all is going on. And then they also wanted to. We also realized that there's a gap between day-to-day issues and what people conceive as global issues. So for our objectives, we got four main ones here. All of these are what we consider to be the most measurable. So our first one is to increase awareness. We really want to just try and increase brand awareness amongst Gen Z through social media impressions and then brand awareness. Also, we want to try and boost that engagement. So, you know, get them not only seeing our content, but also interacting with it, doing a deeper dive, engaging with the website, seeing what our brand has to offer. And then the participation wise is not only social media, but also showing up for the campus events, showing up for the meetings, showing up for all the different chapters across the United States and getting them signed up and involved with the in-person events we do rather than just virtually. Then we also want to grow the digital community. So we are not only, so we have the chapters across the United States, but we want to bring all of them together and build a more so, I guess, for lack of better terms, powerful United Nations group for the Gen Z.
All right, so let's start with how we approach this, and that's that the UNSA or UNA USA needs to reach young Americans who often feel disconnected and from large institutions like the United Nations. And that's the whole tension. These are people that care about the world and they don't just care about they don't necessarily feel close to institutions and working within them. So before we pitched a single idea, we wanted to do the homework. We paired secondary industry research with a primary survey. So every finding is validated from two directions here. In other words, we're not just guessing. Everything you'll hear today is shows up in both of our own data and our outside research. And starting with five questions. One, awareness. The UN among 18 to 25 or 24-year olds. Two, which issues and values matter most and how they line up with the UNA USA's mission. Three, which channels actually reach this audience. Four, the barriers keeping them from getting involved. And five, how they respond when the UN has made or how it's made itself personally relevant. So we have our primary source, which is a survey of 35 respondents that uh, involved 13 questions on SurveyMonkey, and we did so in a reachable agreement, which is of industry standard, which is sub 10 minutes. And we were able to do this in around 5 minutes, average survey time. And we'll be honest with you, it's a small sample, so we treat it as a directional signal, not the necessary gospel. But that's exactly why we backed it up with established research, and that was took form in Statista, which is a database that allows us to track Gen Z media habits and as well as IBIS World for nonprofit kind of landscape gathering and the UNICEF USA, which is a kind of gives us a competitive review. So here's the part that matters most. Our survey is not just some outside research pointed to the same conclusions. This is where your data and the industry data agrees, and you can trust what you're seeing. All right, so on this slide, I really want you to remember here's what the UNA USA stands for today. The UNA USA educates and mobilizes Americans to support the UN. But to the audience it most wants to reach, it's almost invisible. And the data is blunt about that. So look at this first chart. In terms of heard of UNA USA before the survey, 63% said no. Never heard about it. But now look at that second chart because this is the hopeful part, and that's that the overall opinion of the United Nations, 43% positive. So the goodwill is already there. People don't have a problem with it, with the UN. They just don't know what the USA exists or stands for, which brings us to the one line that this slide drives everything. The problem is awareness and relevance. It's not a broken repetition. So we're not fixing an image, we're getting on the radar. All right. We didn't have the guess, we didn't have to do a bunch of guesswork. We studied something that someone's already doing. We reviewed the UNICEF USA data, a UN affiliated nonprofit that successfully mobilizes young supporters and is our closest model for what works. And here's four things that stood out. Impact over structure. Stories, not statistics. Easy ways in, and youth as partners. They lead us with what changed and not how it's organized. They tell us stories about real people. They make getting involved easy, and they treat young people as partners, not just wallets. What gives us This is what gives us marching orders. So the whole idea is show impact, not structure, and connect global work to action a young person can actually take today. So let's make this about a real person. Let's meet Maya. And Maya's a 22-year-old graduate, a curious, a cause curious scholar. Maya cares about the world, but she's busy. She's a little tired from the big institutions, and the momentum in the moment feels somewhat preachy. So she just kind of scrolls past. And here's her at a glance. Her values are freedom, safety, opportunity, and her media diet would be something like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. She engages in what's local, personal, and easy to act on. And her barriers are the whole problem in this miniature. She's never heard of UNA USA, not sure if it makes a difference, worried it's too political. And if you'll remember one thing from this whole presentation, make it her quote. I care. I just don't always know what actually helps or where to start. And that's the brief. Everything we recommend next builds on that one sentence. So in terms of SWOT analysis, you can hear that the UN is positively registered and skews as a peace and unity cooperation. In terms of opportunities, we have social media and all of the listening habits of Gen Z to our advantage, which are short form and sometimes long form content. One weakness is that um, most people have never heard of the U.S. associated organization as it revolves around the UN. And then a threat would be, that skepticism towards large institutions and the distrust that revolves around that. And this is Maya. Sorry about that. Might have gone out of order there.
Alrighty. So this is kind of a breakdown of our creative strategy. Our campaign is built around the world is bigger than you think. That's our big idea. Basically, wanting to present the UN as something not so distant and really accessible to Gen Z. Americans, we want young Americans to be able to connect with issues that they already care about. And we kind of want the UNA USA to be the bridge between, caring about these issues and then actually taking action on them. Our key insights, our research showed that Gen Z is not disconnected from global issues. They're just disconnected kind of from larger organizations. Like Sam said, they don't really have like a good reputation with our target audience based on our survey. And while many young adults care about topics like human rights, education, climate, equality, they often see them as too large or complex and kind of, again, far away, distant, and not really, close to them. So continuing, our reasons to believe, just a couple of the main ones. The UNA USA provides simple and accessible ways for young people to get involved. We want it to be really easy for young people to get educated and make it accessible for them to make the change that they want to create. The organization helps connect global issues to local communities. Because again, from our research, we found that Gen Z is much more willing to act when they, have like a tangible sort of way that they know it's going to help impact their local community in a positive way. And our campaign demonstrates that even small actions can contribute to larger global change. Some of our key messages: the world is bigger than you think, of course. Global issues do have a direct impact on your everyday life, and your voice and actions and the things that you do and the ways that you get involved can actually make meaningful change. And that, again, the UNA USA is like that bridge of accessibility between those two things. Um, so again, continued with the creative strategy, our strategic rationale. Um, the strategy addresses the primary challenge identified in our research: low awareness and limited understanding, and kind of, again, like low reputation of larger organizations. So rather than asking young adults to care more about global issues, because we know that they already care, it meets them where they're at and basically gives them a blueprint on, hey, here's how you can get involved and make change and become more educated and network with a bunch of other young people that also care about the issues that you do and want to get involved as well. So for our creative executions, just kind of like our thinking for, different kinds of media types. For our own media strategy, we really wanted to center it on social media, of course, because that's where Gen Z spends most of their time. And we, have a lot of data on their media habits. Um, and social media is just super easy and accessible, and it helps them to really easily discover their local chapters and take really quick, immediate action. For events and sponsorships, we created community focused events that allow young adults to get together and network and, hang out with people who, again, care about the same things as they do and want to, make change and educate themselves and kind of get involved in these movements that the UNA USA works with. So point of purchase displays. Our campaign includes branded informational displays that encourage people to, learn more, like through, QR codes, simple calls to action. These displays reinforce our campaign messaging. Again, just, trying to get quick education, quick engagement. Um, Campaign for our merchandise. Our campaign merchandise extends awareness beyond digital platforms by giving supporters a visible way to share the campaign, an identifiable logo, everything like that. Um, for influencer marketing, influencers were selected because Gen Z, of course, places a lot of trust in influencers and social media. And they place greater trust in authentic voices than in large institutions, like we learned from our research. So by partnering with creatives who align with our initiatives and who, feel credible to Gen Z, they're going to be more likely to, follow their interests to the UNA USA if they feel like a good influencer or creator that's authentic is um, behind the marketing. Because from the research, we know that Gen Z um, really responds to authenticity well. For traditional advertising, our paid advertising includes sponsored social media content and digital advertisements that reinforce the campaign's core message. Again, the world is bigger than you think. This creative uses approachable visuals and clear calls to action that increase awareness, but again, still keeping them directing towards, converting and getting involved and learning more. Um, So for my last section, creative testing, so following our kind of initial creative review, we received feedback that our campaign was professionally designed and aligned with our target audience, but that our executions needed to be a little more cohesive and, have that repetitive messaging in them. And, made sure that it was a little more tangible and demonstrated how the UN creates, tangible everyday impact for Gen Z. Based on this feedback, we refined our creatives a little bit, and we strengthened sort of the repetitiveness and consistency of the real people, real impact, real change. Um, and this created kind of a more just unified visual with our executions, so that they weren't kind of all over the place. And it was, really clear the message that we were trying to send to Gen Z, getting them involved. These revisions, I think, definitely improved like the cohesiveness overall of our creative. Um, and of course, it's all driven by the research insights, and by emphasizing more tangible examples of the UN's impact, before encouraging participation. The campaign's a little more effective at communicating, why the UNA USA matters, and provides a strong foundation for, trust and engagement, all that good stuff. And then lastly, this is our little creative testing heat map. Lastly, for me, this basically just shows the original creative that we went with, and then basically kind of where we tailored and updated our creative to be more, again, like repetitive, cohesive. It's very clear looking at them in a group, what they, the edits that we made and how we wanted to keep the message a little more clear and repetitive in the visuals.
And so here's our public relations strategy. So our public relations strategy is built around our campaign message: real people, real impact, real change. So instead of focusing on the United Nations as a large international organization, we want to highlight the real people whose lives are impacted through UNA USA. So we plan to partner with universities, local nonprofits, food banks, and community cleanup organizations to create a meaningful volunteer opportunities. These events will generate like authentic stories, photos, videos, and testimonials that can be shared across our campaign. We also plan to distribute like press releases to local and national news outlets like university newspapers, nonprofit publications, student media, and like public radio to build credibility and increase awareness through our earned media. So if we go to the next slide, it is our print ad. So this print ad reflects the overall theme of our campaign by showing the global issues that begin with local action. The message focuses on making the United Nations feel more relatable by highlighting students working together in their communities rather than just simply asking people to support the UNA USA. The ad demonstrates what involvement would actually look like, and the goal is to build trust through authentic storytelling by showing measurable community impact and encouraging young adults to see that their own actions can contribute to meaningful global change. So if we go to the next slide, it's our media kit. And our media kit includes creative content designed specifically for Instagram and TikTok, because after all, through the research, those were the two platforms most used by our target audience. So each piece highlights a different aspect of our campaign. One introduces the connection between global issues and everyday life. Another encourages viewers to find like their local chapter to help out. And the testimonial post provides like social proof through a real student experience. So together, these posts maintain a consistent visual identity while encouraging engagement and directing audiences to take action. So if we go to the next slides, our media strategy. So our media strategy follows the peso model by integrating paid, earned, shared, and owned media into one, coordinated campaign. So the largest portion of our budget is dedicated to paid media because it gives us the greatest opportunity to reach Gen Z, our target audience, on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat. While our earned media helps to establish credibility through public relations and campus outreach, while our shared media encourages participation through creative partnerships, community engagement. And our own media includes our websites, landing pages, and email communication. It provides the resources that's needed to convert awareness into like a long-term investment. So if we go into the next slide and look at our primary markets for this campaign. So to maximize our budget, we selected primary and secondary markets based on high concentrations of college students and young professionals within our target audience. And we specifically look for digitally engaged audiences. So our primary markets include like cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Boston, because they offer large populations of our target audience. And our secondary markets consist of cities like Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Denver, and Minneapolis, because they provide additional opportunities to expand the campaign while maintaining cost efficiency. Our next slide is a 12-month period using like a strategy for our paid media. So our paid social advertising remains active throughout the campaign with an increased investment during key recruitment and awareness periods. Our earned media, activities, including press releases, campus outreach, continue year round to maintain like visibility. Shared media focuses on creative partnerships and community engagement, while our own media provides ongoing content through like the website, email marketing, and educational resources like I was talking about earlier throughout the year. And so let's just dive into our risk and opportunities, starting with the risk. So like any campaign, there will be some risks, and here are the key ones. So changes to social media algorithms could reduce the visibility of our content, while the amount of marketing to Gen Z sees each day can create a intense competition for attention. And another challenge is that some young adults view international organizations as a distant or political thing, making it difficult to build trust with our target audience. And if we go on to our next slide, despite these challenges, there are significant opportunities for UNA USA to connect with Gen Z. Young adults spend a large amount of time on social media, giving us multiple opportunities to reach them with engaging content. Their growing interest in issues like climate action, human rights, and equality naturally aligns with UNA USA's mission by partnering universities and student organizations to create authentic experience that build trust and encourage participation. So ultimately, our campaign aims to show that global change begins with local action, and that every individual has the ability to make a meaningful impact. And if we go to our results and measurement slide, to evaluate the success of our campaign, we establish SMART goals with clear benchmarks and measurable outcomes. So our first objective is to increase UNA USA's brand awareness among Americans between ages 18 to 24 from a baseline of 37% to a 55% within 12 months. We also aim to improve mission understanding from 32% to 50% over the same time period. And finally, we want to increase meaningful engagement, including event registrations, email signups, and QR scans by 25% by the end of our campaign. So these goals are supported by our benchmarks at 3 and 6 months, so we can measure progress and make adjustments if needed. Performance will be tracked by using Google Analytics, Meta Ads Manager, and TikTok Analytics. and as well as like Instagram platform insights and post campaign surveys as well. Our team will review the results weekly to complete a mid-campaign performance evaluation, excuse me, and optimize messaging, creative content, and budget allocation based on the audience responses. And by continuously monitoring these KPIs, we can ensure that the campaign remains effective and make data-driven improvements throughout the year.
And here you'll see our use of sources. We have a variation of scholarly sources, websites, surveys, the UNA USA website itself. All of this was used to compile the data that we just presented to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.